Welcome back, students, to the second video, chapter 1 of chemistry, class 11. I'll be starting with some basic concepts of chemistry. Now, in your previous classes, you have already studied about matter, what is matter, how matter has been classified into elements, compounds, and mixtures. You have studied what is an element, what is a compound, what's a mixture, and why the elements differ from each other, whether why elements in fact combine to form compounds, or why a compound is different from a mixture, what is the difference between the mixture and the compound. All these things you have already studied in the previous classes. You've also come to know a little bit on Dalton's atomic theory, the postulates of Dalton's atomic theory, which stated that matter was made up of very small indivisible particles called atoms, that atoms of the same element are identical in all respects. So you've done all these things. Atoms of different elements differ in properties and weight. Atoms combine in a simple but fixed ratio, is the smallest particle and which can take part in a chemical reaction. So all these different postulates of Dalton's atomic theory you have in one way or the other studied. Okay, so but Dalton's atomic theory, earlier in the beginning, it was very successful, it was accepted by all, and it explains in fact various laws of the chemical combinations. But there were certain things that Dalton's theory failed to explain, which also I think you have heard before. You've studied that it could not explain why a particular chemical combination is taking place. That means why elements are combining together. What is the change that is taking place? Okay, it fails to explain the laws of certain gaseous volumes. It does not distinguish between the ultimate particle of an element and a compound. The idea of certain isotopes, which you know what are isotopes, isobars, etc., could not exactly be given or explained by Dalton's atomic theory. So slowly, scientists started, studying and conducting experiments as to why certain compounds combine together, and they came up with certain laws of chemical combinations. And these laws of chemical combinations are the fundamental basis of chemistry, the fundamental basis of why a particular element is combining to form a compound, how the element will combine, in what ratio it will combine. Okay, and is it going to combine in any random manner, or is it going to combine and come together in a particular set of rules? These were studied by different scientists, and this was way back in 1700s it was done, and certain fundamental laws were given. So that is where we start with our first lesson, that is the laws of chemical combination. Okay, now we know that the very essence of chemistry is chemical reactions, and every chemical reaction follows, or in fact has to follow, certain specific laws. Like when you are in school, if we have class 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, everyone together, and every teacher is teaching something or the other, don't you think there'll be a chaos in the school? Every set, the school has to have a certain regulation, certain rules which have to be followed so that a normalcy, a particular system is maintained, right? It has to be governed by a certain set of rules which you follow. Then if you are going onto the road, you're driving your vehicles, and as you're not using any sort of traffic rules, you're not following any sort of traffic rules, every other person is moving haywire on the road, what will happen? It'll end up in accidents. Therefore, whatever is there, the plant is growing, a plant has to grow. If the plant has to grow, there has to be certain rule. It has to get something from the ground, it has to get something from the air. There are certain rules, it is following a certain set, and that is what is being followed in chemical reactions also. Nothing is haywire. So These laws which are governing the chemical combinations, these laws are exactly the laws of chemical combinations. Now, what are different laws that you have to study? In fact, what are the fundamental laws? I would call them the fundamental laws. The fundamental laws. Okay, now what are these fundamental laws? The fundamental laws are, the first one, law of conservation of mass, and I'm sure everybody has heard of this. Then second law, law of constant composition. It is also called the law of definite proportion. So constant composition is also called definite proportion. Third law, law of multiple proportion. And what is the fourth one? The fourth one is the law of reciprocal proportion. Fifth law, which you have already studied in class 10, that is Gay-Lussac's law of combining volumes. So measure the 5 fundamental laws which govern any chemical reaction, the ordinary chemical reactions that we have in the laboratory. So these are the laws. Okay. Now we will be starting with the first law. I'll explain the first law. Then we'll do a few numericals on the first law, and I'll be giving you a few questions to explain, or you'll have to do those numericals in a particular copy, and then when the school reopens, when we are in class, you can just give it for correction. Okay. So the first law that we are going to start on is the law of conservation of mass. Now, the law of conservation of mass, that was given by a scientist. He's a French scientist. His name is A. Lavoisier. Now, it was given in almost 1774, around that time. Okay, and it is actually dealing with the relationship that is there between the mass of the reactant and mass of the product. For example, suppose you have a reaction. A plus B is giving C plus D. Suppose you have a reaction like this. So what this law is going to state is that the relationship between the masses of the reactants and the masses of the products. And when we say that, how can we define that particular law? The definition is, during any physical or chemical change, the total mass of the products obtained is always equal to the total mass of the reactants taken at the beginning of the change. That means I am not making or creating anything new. Whatever is happening, if there is a chemical change, if A is converted to C, they are combining together in some manner or the other, and it is being converted to C and D. What are we seeing? We are seeing that there could be some rearrangement that has taken place here, but nothing, no new atom like has been formed. It will still have the same mass. The mass of this is new. It's a new product. But this product, the total mass of the product here and the total mass of the reactant here, they will not be different. They will always remain same. That is the first law. Okay, so how do we explain that? Now, when we say the first law, now when you are talking about the first law, it tells us that mass can neither be created nor destroyed. Okay, that means in this law we are talking about the state where a reaction is taking place, and in that particular reaction, when the reaction takes place, the masses of the reactant will remain the same as the mass of the product. Now, when I say mass of the reactant is remaining the same as the mass of the product, it can be possible only when matter can neither be created nor destroyed in any physical or chemical change. Therefore, this law can be stated as, in another way that you can state the same law is, during any physical or chemical change, matter is neither created nor destroyed. However, it may change from one form to another. For example, let us take an example. I have written down a reaction out here. We have carbon plus oxygen giving carbon dioxide. Carbon is the solid, oxygen a gas, carbon dioxide a gas. And we all know what is the atomic weight of carbon. Carbon, the atomic weight is 12. What is atomic weight of oxygen? Atomic weight of oxygen is 16. Now remember one thing. When I'm talking about weight, in physics, weight and mass, they are different because you have gravity, right? But in chemistry, we ignore that part of it and we consider atomic weight, that is the weight term, and the mass term to be the same. So we interchange. There's no effect that we are taking in terms of gravity over here. We just consider them to be almost the same. So atomic weight, I'll be talking about atomic weight, or sometimes I may say atomic mass. It means the same thing. So we have atomic weight of carbon as 12, atomic weight of oxygen as 16. So therefore, I have one atom of carbon. So that means its atomic mass is 12. I have two atoms of oxygen, which means 16 into 2, that is 32 grams. And I have a product here. So this is the reactant. That is, you have the reactant here, and this is the product. Okay, so we have carbon plus oxygen. Now, what is the total weight of the reactant? The total weight of the reactant is 12 plus 32, that is 44. And the total weight of the product is again 12 carbon, 32 oxygen combined, of course, in a different state, but the mass remains the same. Another example, nitrogen and hydrogen giving ammonia. Nitrogen, what is the atomic weight? 14. Hydrogen has got atomic weight 1, which means that nitrogen, there are two atoms of nitrogen. So what do I have? 14 into 2, that is 28. I have 3 into 2, 6 atoms of hydrogen. So 6 into 1, that is 6. So in totality, how much do I have in the reactant state? We have 34 grams in the reactant state. And how much do we have in the product side? In the product side, we have 2 into ammonia, which means 2 atoms of nitrogen, that is 14, plus 3 atoms of hydrogen 3. So 14 plus 3 into 2, that will come out to be 34. So we have 34 of the reactant, 34 grams of the product. Mass remains the same. Calcium carbonate heated, giving calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. Now this is a solid, this is a solid, this is a gas. But what is the total weight of calcium? In terms of its atomic weight, we have calcium 40, carbon 12, oxygen 16. So over here, we will have in totality 3 into 16. That is, in terms of the totality, you will have 100 grams in terms of calcium carbonate, 56 grams in terms of calcium oxide, and 44 grams in terms of carbon dioxide. If I total 56 and 44, it comes out to be 100. So what does this law state? That whatever is the reactant and whatever is the product, when a reaction is taking place, there will be no change in the mass. And mass means what I'm talking about, matter. So matter is neither created nor destroyed. The remaining part I'll have in the next video.